Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Rather than doing a lockdown life hack, I'm taking the suggestion of my dear friend Lanice to read you a story. So I thought, okay, let's make this a legit ASMR experience. So, the book I have for you today is called Greenstone by Sylvia Ashton-Warner. And it was published by Whitcomb and Toombs. That's a picture of the author right there. Now you can probably still see the sticker. Before the lockdown started, I got this for $1 at the Orphans Aid op shop in Frankton. And when I bought it, actually, the lady asked if I was a teacher, because apparently this is a classic New Zealand novel, and Sylvia was a teacher, and a lot of teachers read her books or something. I don't know. I didn't grow up in New Zealand. I was born here, but I didn't grow up, so I don't really know what kids were taught in school here. But, yeah. Firstly, let's show you the cover. It's nice. Got the gilding down the side there. It's so pretty. I think this might be like the first print edition of it, because the date inside says 1967 it was first published. But here is the synopsis. From its opening lines, Greenstone pulls the reader into the heart of a huge, eccentric family, into an exotic landscape, into an atmosphere pulsating with life. It is a novel about an impossible marriage out of which an impossibly wonderful world of love and closeness is born. Richard Considine, aristocratic, crippled, was once a great figure in the shadowy, oceans-away world of English mansions, retainers, ladies, and taffeta. His wife, the breadwinner, abrasive, unbeautiful. What could he have seen in her? Has no graces but one, an indestructible capacity to shelter. They have some dozen children of their own, children of all sizes and temperaments, always in motion, their faces suddenly appearing like more exotic flowers amongst the ferns of the rain-washed New Zealand forest. And there is another child, their granddaughter, Huia Considine, whose other grandfather is the aged, magnificent Maori lord, the Renga Renga. She is a princess, heiress to a kingdom, to a fortune, to the royal insignia from which the novel takes its title. These are the impossible Considines, whose story is told with great resonance of person and place, of sound and colour, of humour, movement and feeling. It is easy to believe that Greenstone will be a novel greatly loved. Apparently it is greatly loved, and I know nothing about it. But I'm about to read it with you. On the back is a little bit of info about Sylvia. Sylvia Ashton-Warner was educated by her mother until she was 11, and then attended the Whiteout Upper College and the Auckland Teachers Training College. She spent many years teaching in Māori schools as an infant mistress, and this experience equipped her to write her first novel, Spinster, which on publication received wide acclaim. She is married with 2 sons and a daughter. And the jacket design is by Paul Davis. So I quite like the cover already. It's got the greenstone or the tiki. For those not from New Zealand, or those, greenstone is known as pounamu here. It's one of the few places that it can be found. You'd know it as jade in other countries, a greenstone. And these hills look like somewhere south of Taumarunui. If you've ever been there, I used to live in Taumarunui. Let's see. I like the smell of this old book. Greenstone. From its opening lines, Greenstone pulls the reader into the heart of a huge eccentric family, into an exotic landscape, into an atmosphere pulsating with life. It is a novel about an impossible marriage out of which an impossibly wonderful world of love and closeness is born. also by Sylvia Ashton-Warner, bell call, teacher, incense to idols, and spinster. So here we've got an image of a po, the title page. It's copyright 1966 and first published in 1967 in England. And this must have been printed in England and sent here. I don't know why they would have done that, but it was the 60s, I don't know. And this is dedicated to the Whanganui River in New Zealand, which is really interesting because, I mean, this is the 60s, but it was only kind of recently that the Whanganui River was the first natural entity to be granted like personhood status, so legal personhood. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's true. Yeah, because it is such an important taonga or place or treasure. And then a glossary of Māori words appears on page 215. Now, just for the sake of people who aren't from New Zealand, I'm going to go straight to the glossary because my Aotearoa isn't great, but it's going to be better than someone who doesn't live in New Zealand. And again, this is the 60s, and it's written by someone who's not Māori, so these may not be entirely accurate. So Māori words: ana, yes; ao means light; aroha, love; oe, expression of distress, except if you've seen Moana, they just sing that. Oe, anyway. Haka, a dance with words. Not entirely accurate, that one. Hawaii, the unknown spot on the Earth's surface where the Māoris claim to have come from and to which their spirits will return. Again, not quite accurate, but all Polynesians refer to Hawaii in some form as the place that we came from. Huia is a native bird now believed extinct, whose tail feathers were greatly prized by the Māori as a mark of rank. Hukarere, an historic Māori girls' college. Ka, fire or burn. Kaiteke, a flax cloak. Karakia, incantation or prayer. Koutu ki te rangi, the name of one of the steering paddles of the Aotearoa canoe, which came to New Zealand with a fleet of 7 canoes in the Great Migration of the 14th century. Kiwi, a native bird, wingless, whose feathers the Māori used for cloaks of rank. Koro, old man. Korowai, a cloak of dressed flax decorated with feathers. Kowhai, a native tree with golden blossoms, New Zealand's emblem flower. Kuia, an old woman. Kumara, sweet potato. Makutu, black magic. Manuka, a wild bush with delicate white flowers. You probably are familiar with the honey. Marae, the area before a meeting house where tribal discussions take place. Mere, a skull splitter made of greenstone or whalebone. Mokopuna, grandchild. Ngāti is a tribe. Pa, Māori village. Pākehā, white person, or any person who's not Māori really. Papa, the earth, or Papatuanuku. Piu Piu is a skirt made of flax leaves. Po is night or darkness. Poi, a hand dance with a small flax ball on a string, swung and twirled rhythmically to a song. Also, the ball itself is known as poi. Puhi is virgin. Rangatira is chief or chieftainess. Rangi is sky. Roro is porch of a meeting house. Taiaha is a carved wooden spear. Takarangi, name of a famous greenstone. Taku, mai. Tane Mahuta, god of the forest. Tangi means to weep or cry, or is another word for funeral. Taniko, a woven design in flax fibre. Taniwha, a water monster. tapu, sacred, a spiritual band, Te Aotearoa, an historic Māori boys' college, Te Roko Whitu, the name of the other steering paddle of the Aotearoa canoe, Tiki, a grotesque carving of a man, Tohunga, is a priest, Tohunga Mokutu, a priest who uses his supernatural powers for the purpose of evil, Tui, the emblem bird of New Zealand, Waiata, a Maori song, and Whare, a very small house, or just a house. And that is the list of words you should know to be able to understand this book. Now, I encourage everyone, if you live in New Zealand, to attempt to learn Te Reo Māori. Do your best, even if it's just pronouncing the words correctly. I would like to be a lot better, but I try, and that's all you can do. Try and improve, and watch Māori TV and listen to Māori radio, and it'll help you with the pronunciation and get your vocab up. Okay, so I'm just going to do the intro, and then we'll start on the first chapter. By the side of a murmuring stream, an elegant gentleman sat. On top of his head was his wig. On top of his wig was his hat. On the top of his wig was his hat. On the top of his wig was his hat. Old English rune. Now I'm using a measuring tape as my bookmark here. Move that aside. The whare sits in the clearing among its ghosts and rains, memories of passions and Māori curses and showers of midsummer. Vivid red and white foxgloves radiate to the circumference of the forest, among them an occasional lost tree fern and many a burnt-out stump. And logs lie about, like reproachful corpses telling tales of the past on the slaughter of living nature trees by our civilized brother the white man. It may have had a coat of paint one time way back in the former century when some young mill hand had been moved to build it with the hope for the future in his brush and his soft new wife in mind, but there's not a sign of it now in its worn colourlessness. To look at the timber is much like the stumps and plainly related to them, while the iron of the roof is disguised with leaves. So grown into the clearing as the whare is to be of it rather than in it, it could well be growing here like anything else. By one of the windows, an ancient tree embraces the whole thing. Yet there are signs of life. From the edge of the surrounding forest, a track leads down through the foxgloves to the back door, where a porch opens upon a heavily lived-in kitchen. Except for a sack on the hearth, there's no covering on the floor. Indeed, in the bare boards there is even a hole. Not big, but still a hole. The walls are bare timber too. So is the table on the inner wall. A long, large exhibit to seat a dozen or more, with a form behind and a few chairs around. Nearby, a dresser holds stacked dishes. On the outer wall with the window there's a tough old grand, a small piano that has seen a bit of life, and on the same wall in the far corner beside the door is an iron single bedstead, something else with an obvious history. There is an upturned box beside it on which are lying tidily together a book, a pipe, and a tin of tobacco. Just within the back door is the stove, wood projecting from a firebox, and there's a kitchen chair beside it. Mr. Considine sits on this chair by the stove, although it is high midsummer, being a man who finds it hard to keep warm. However, it is late afternoon, and in this valley between the ranges, the shadows come down early, I assure you, and the breath of the river rises to meet them, so that it is not only he who registers the chill of an evening in this side. The villagers themselves do, the tourist at this side house in the season, and Humpty in the stall. As for returning from a cruise on the river with Tongi late in the day, you know all about it then. It's a matter of pulling the collar of your coat right up around your face and sharing someone's rug. No, it's not surprising to find him sitting by the stove, especially a man who cannot walk. On each side of his chair leans a crutch. He's a man in his 40s, Mr. Considine, but his face has an agelessness, a delicate face from an indoor life. The black curly hair uncut for some time accentuates the paleness, as also does a fair moustache, untrimmed too and flowing. It's a strange thing, I agree, how some men manage to comb dark hair with how some men manage to combine dark hair with a fair moustache, and such is the case here. I myself remember it clearly. Beside there hangs a coloured picture of him over the piano in great-grandma's cottage, or they did until just recently. He has one of these aquiline turned-down noses you find in the aristocracy, while behind his glasses his eyes can only be described as English blue. Possibly the term English can account for the whole impression. His face has the fine complexion and colouring often bred in the English climate, a fresh but fragile face. But look at his locked body. Rheumatoid arthritis as we know it, but according to the Māori in the village it is the limb-withering curse of the tohunga makutu. Yet, to the younger half of the family, having been brought up with it, it seems all right. To them it is the right way for a father to be, and they would not have it any other way. I think that if ever he stood upright one morning before them and walked, as he is always promising he will, it would be the stone end of him. They never question the sharp knees locked in angles, severe right angles they are. After all, they can hold the baby. Or the comically knotted hands. These hands make their porridge, however shivering the morning, comb their hair for school, parting it and tying it with string. They hold a pointer to teach them music, put wood on the fire provided there is some, pour a cup of tea for Mama, and above all, in the evening, brown the potatoes. He is locked at the hips too, so that his whole thin body is a zigzag drawing of what a man's body should be. But you only see this when he gets up on his crutches, a far from graceful performance. No collar to his shirt, and no top button, and none on his coat either, which could have belonged to the eldest son, Daniel, who was a very broad young man. Cuffs frayed, of course, reaching too far over his hands, and wide gaping pockets with a handkerchief in one, and a fair-sized book in the other. And he wears trousers of some faded striped sarge, too big for him, and he could have been born in these slippers. They're not worn in the parts where slippers usually are, but have holes in unlikely places where his feet drag after his crutches. Mrs. Considine must have bought him the slippers at one time or another, but no one can say they remember it. He cannot physically have been born in these slippers, though. He claimed he had once in a story. Never mind. In spite of all his clothes are the least of himself, harmoniously so, actively, astonishingly promoting an elegance. All told but for his face. He is not unlike one of these comical dwarfs that decorate and electrify his stories. Richmond D. Considine, Esquire, once a celebrity in the outside world where celebrity seems to matter, sits at the stove in the whare, one sharp knee crossed upon the other, smoothing and browning the potatoes in the pan. He twisted, hand cunningly, controlling the knife. His back is erect, his head too. Elegance and frailty make up the picture of the man at the stove in the timbered, crude kitchen. Frailty, elegance, mystery. And I'm going to stop there for now. To be continued. Put my bookmark back there. So far, so good. I'm getting a good picture of what the place looks like and feels like. And it's kind of getting to that time of year here too. It's the end of summer and things are getting kind of cold. Albeit we are in lockdown, so we aren't really leaving the house. But, oh yes, I have socks on all day, no barefoot anything, and the old hoodies come out. But I do remember that chill when you're in the hills and the mist that rises. But yes, I will continue reading if you would like me to get through this whole book. I'm not sure what the legalities are for me reading this book. I hope I don't get in trouble, but I don't know, it looks like a good book. Anyway, to be continued.